Do you think that it's beneficial for men to get off dating apps?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
Dating apps is by far the worst approach that guys can do. For most people, I do caveat it, like for a very, very small percentage of guys. Like, yeah, if you're not just a Chad, because even if you're a Chad, I think that you've got better things to do than waste your time on online dating apps. Like, I've recently had an interview with who is widely considered a Chad, a dating coach called James Tusk, and even he says that he doesn't worry about online dating apps because, like, just the amount of time and effort that you have to spend on them, and you turn up to the date and the woman looks nothing like her pictures, it's just not worth it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Emily and Todd Podcast. Before we get started, please like and comment as it helps with the YouTube algorithm. Who should pay for the first date? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about women versus men on providing, the date ongoing too, not even, just the first date. I believe in whoever asks the other person out on the first date, like they should be the one paying. I think that's sort of just
Well,
common
I've got
sense.
one thing to say. Well, I do agree with what you just said there. But I've got one more important thing to say, which is arguably more important than who should pay, is how much should you pay, and the way that you, and that's in your control, because I think that it's a very bad thing for a guy to do, to ask a woman to somewhere expensive, like for dinner on the first date. It puts both people in an awkward position when the payment comes, especially if it's a bill like in excess of $100. Like, if you choose something a lot more smaller, like, a drink or two or a coffee, we're talking like $10 anyway. It's nothing. I wouldn't even care if I got asked by another woman and I paid for the coffee. It wouldn't make a difference because it's not that much money anyway. So I think that's more important than who should pay.
Well, throughout my life, and I think Wheat and I talked about this, during our trip, is I don't think I've ever not paid for the first date, or probably the second as well.
What if a woman has asked you? Have you still paid then, or has that never happened?
As far as I've always been the one to initiate a date.
Oh, okay.
And so they would agree to it, but if a woman asked me on a date, if that in the rare event that happened, I wouldn't expect her to pay. Again, I would at least expect to pay half. But just because, again, from my generation, I would feel like the onus is on me, to do that, just as a gentleman. That's kind of what I've been taught, and that's what I'm just comfortable with, I guess.
I think even as a millennial myself, I tend to agree with that. For the first date, there's that tradition of the man paying, it's just their traditional gender role. But I guess you don't really hear that often of women asking the guy out on a first date anyways.
Do you think a woman should offer to pay?
So I think that they should offer to pay if they are really honestly good with that. Like, if they really want to play that role of 50-50, this is what the relationship is going to be, totally. That's awesome. I think the problem is when women put up this front, they're not really okay with being the one that's paying. They really actually really want that man to, like, show effort by paying. And so she puts in that kind of empty promise. How about we split this? And they're actually not okay with that. So
nine times out of 10, when a woman offers like that, she knows that the man is going to shut it down, and he'll end up paying in full anyway. But like, she's just like, I've heard stories. Well, you told me one yesterday, I think, of that exact scenario. But I've heard even worse stories than the one that you told, where like a woman will offer, but she didn't even bring her purse to the date. So she knew that she wasn't going to pay, but she's still trying to, put herself in a positive light, even though it's a completely empty promise.
Yeah. It's just a face that she's putting out there. So that I don't agree with, because I think that,
that's wrong.
Because it sets up different expectations that you're willing to really stand by.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is that it does make a difference to me if she would at least offer, even though I know that she doesn't, because if she doesn't even offer, then that's a red flag.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, maybe not on the first date, but definitely like on the second date, or something like that. Again, even if it's just kind of signaling, it's still rather than, because it has that air of entitlement then. Do you know what I mean? That it's just an expectation that you're going to pay.
Right. So you want to feel like it's being appreciated.
Yes. And to me, when somebody says, I can pick up this, or how much do I owe or whatever, that, again, even though I'm not going to accept that, it feels like the woman did appreciate that. Like she's recognizing that there's a bill here, someone's got to pay it, and it's most likely going to be you, but thank you for that, without actually coming out and saying, thanks.
That's tricky then, because what I'm saying is, she shouldn't do it if she's not willing to actually pay for it, but you're seeing it as a sign of appreciation.
Yes.
Would you not see it as better if the woman just said, "Oh, thank you for, taking me out for this first date. I had a really good time," instead of, because that's appreciation, but that's not an empty promise, is it? That's just saying that like she appreciates a date, but it's an empty promise if a woman offers to pay but has no means.
Yeah. Ideally, it'd be both. It'd be, offering to pay. And then when you say, no, I got this, then they're like, oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself, that type of thing. Because it shows effort on the woman that, she has interest, rather than just kind of expecting the person to pay, not saying anything at all. I don't know. I think everybody's a little bit different.
I see what you're saying, though, because I think that women could find a way to show that appreciation without having that empty offer.
Well, so because most of the time what I've seen and watching kind of other women speak about this is that if she does offer that and the guy says yes, then he's done pretty much. She'll pay her half, but then it's over. Yes,
they've made it into a test. I've seen this. Well, yes.
I know this isn't a common occurrence, but what if the woman earns substantially more than the man? Is there more of an obligation for the woman to put something on the table in that scenario?
I think for the majority of women, they don't see it that way. They will start to spiral into arguments as to how much money they've had to spend on their outfit, their hair, their makeup.
But men may have spent money on like the petrol getting to the actual date itself. As Todd said earlier, that they're more likely to pick the woman up. Men have spent money like potentially on a haircut, going to the gym. Men are way more likely to go to the gym than women. That all costs money, and I'm not denying the things that you said. They're both costs that go into it, but there's costs on both sides.
I totally agree, but I think that women they can start to focus on that, because that's what I've seen as excuses from women as to, even if I make more money than him, this is how much, I'm putting towards myself for this date. But
that's mainly for the woman though, isn't it? Like, if a woman, does her hair, does it really rub off on the man? Like, kind of, because he looks cool because he's sitting next to this hot woman. But if a woman gets her hair done, she's going to get the benefits of that anyway, and that's going to last her days and weeks beyond the date itself.
Right. Oh, true. I totally agree. I do. I think that it's really just an excuse.
It is an excuse, yeah.
It's to hide their thinking and their belief that really, like, a man paying is that effort, right? And they want to see that effort. And they're just not saying that. And they can't. If the argument is that if she makes more money than him, she should be the one to pay, well, then how is she seeing the effort from him early on? Because I think traditionally that's where women see it is, from the man paying for the date, planning the date. That's the other big thing, that women want to see is the man just taking charge and planning. So that's like time spent from him.
Sure.
So I don't know what you guys think. Like, if a man isn't paying for the date, early on, what other way does he show effort towards a woman?
Well, I think just to give a little bit of credit to like the small percentage of guys who are in a bit of a precarious financial situation. Like, I think there's, if he, can't necessarily afford to date. Well, my first sort of advice for him would be to, do not date until you're actually financially stable. Get yourself in a better spot first before you start dating. But if it's like a high school relationship where neither of them have jobs and they both still want to date, then I think he can still make it an equal scenario without being abrupt and cold-hearted about it. Like, if he says like, oh, I'll pay, and then the woman says, oh no, I'll offer, and then he says, yes, that's right, that's good, that's perfect, yeah, you put your money on the table now. Like, that's not going to be the best way of going to it. But if he's sincere and honest about his financial situation, if he says like, oh yeah, like, money's a bit tight at the moment, like I haven't got a job right now, I'm just in school, like I might be in a situation where I think it would be better if we both put money on the table. Then if he was it that way, then I think he can still maintain his integrity and not seem like just a cold-hearted monster who wants women to pay on the first date just for the sake of his own ego.
There's definitely that out there where women are saying that a man's worth is kind of like based on how much money he makes and how much he can provide. But we don't really see that always play out, right? Like, we see it pretty often where a woman is with a man that may not have the best finances and she sticks with him. So why do you think that is?
But then that goes back to the whole dating up hypergamy. So maybe a woman's more likely to put money on the table if she's with a Chad.
Yeah, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that is more likely. Yeah, I have heard stories that some guys have put in the comment section of my videos that they've put like women have actually paid in full, not just half, in full, because I'm a Chad or my friend is a Chad and he's broke. Like, I've heard those stories occasionally. They're rare, but I still have heard them.
So what would your advice be to a man that, let's say, has the financial ability to pay?
I would say that on the first date, he should just pay. Like, and I wouldn't say this just for guys in a good financial position. It should be basically everyone. Just pay. It's not going to be that much money. It's going to be $10, $15 max. Hopefully, if you've not asked her out for dinner, God forbid, on a first date, just pay on the first date. As for future dates, I think that it does become a little bit more difficult. For the seconds, yeah, the woman, you might want her to pay. And it's not just about the money. Like, I don't think dating is that expensive anyway, if I'm being honest. Like, over the course of a 1-year relationship, you're talking like $1,000 to $2,000, which again isn't that much money. But it's less about the money, and I think it's more about the values that you're instilling in a relationship, because you don't want a woman taking advantage of you. Like, it would make no difference to me financially if if I dated a woman and I paid for everything and it meant that I was down £1,000 over the course of a year. But it's more about where I think the relationship is going and instilling the principles and values that I want. That I think that are good in a relationship. I think that the longer the relationship goes on, the more it should be a 50-50 scenario, because if you've been dating for, let's say, 2 years and the woman still hasn't even bought the popcorn when you go to see a movie, I think that's an issue, because she's essentially taking you for granted. I think that you do need to, it is expected that a woman's eventually going to have to contribute. And in my experience as well, I think the more likely that a woman is to pay, and when she has paid, that there is a stronger chance that it will work out in the end, and she is actually attracted to me and she's less likely to take me for granted.
Yeah, I think that men, if they pay for absolutely everything and they go in a very extravagant manner, they run the risk of being in a long-term relationship with that woman and then ending up paying for literally everything. Like, she's going to have your card on her Amazon account, and she's going to be, married to you at home ordering 5 boxes of who knows what from Amazon every day.
Yeah, but my point is that even if a guy can afford to do that, like there are CEOs out there that can afford to give the woman the whole world and literally give him his credit card and she can spend whatever she wants. There are guys out there who can afford that, but I don't think that that's what they should do. Like, just because they can pay for it doesn't mean they should. And it's more about instilling values and, you know, ground rules in the relationship that, you know, is a more fair and balanced, you know, an equal, like, relationship.
Well, you said too on your videos that, you know, kind of moving forward from just, you know, the initial dating, is you have very strong feelings about talking about money at all. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, there's things that you can hide and there's things that you can't. Because obviously, if you know, pick up the girl on the third date or fourth date and you've got a Lamborghini, then, you know, she knows it's obvious that you're, you know, got a bit of something behind you. I wouldn't say, I don't think it's ever good for a man to tell a woman exactly how much you make, because, you know, she'll start counting the dollars in her head, even though it's not hers. But at the same time, like, you don't want to pretend like you're broke either. Like, if you've got, you know, a bit of money behind you, you want to show that, like, you're financially stable and, you know, you're competent of providing a decent lifestyle, maybe even to start a family one day as well. But you should talk about this more as a relationship progresses. It's not something that you would talk about on the first date. It's not something you would talk about even in the first month. I think, you know, this is like save for once you actually establish a relationship. That's when, or maybe slightly before, to make sure that you're both on the same page finances wise. Yeah, so it should be safe for that period of time.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it sort of leads into figuring out if you're compatible. And that usually comes on in later stages, you know, once you know that you have the chemistry and connection with each other. And then as you discuss more to figure out, you know, day-to-day life, if you're really compatible.
Well, I think a lot of men, especially wealthier guys, are treading a fine line between showing the lifestyle that they can provide and creeping into beta boxing territory. Like, you want to hit that sweet spot where you can show a woman that, you know, you are financially stable and you can provide a good lifestyle, but at the same time, you're not leading with your wallet, as a lot of people put it.
Do you think that men will do that depending on their other qualities, like depending on their attractiveness? Will more men sub 5?
Yes, it's typically unattractive guys. Like, there's this meme in the black pill community, which is that the Chads get all of the women in high school and in college, but then you have the sub 5 guys who are on like a different path in life, and they're saying, oh, we'll just let them have their fun for the time being, but we're going to college now and we're getting degrees from MIT in mathematics and we're going to be rolling in it, so just wait until we graduate and we're going to, you know, have all of the women coming after us. And then when that happens, then, like, you know, they have all this money and they might be able to get relationships or women chasing after them because of that. But, you know, underneath it all is that these women don't really like them. They're just doing it for the man's money. Like, it's what he can provide, not like what the man is, like not him himself.
Right. And I would think to some level, even those men don't want that. You know, they want somebody that's truly,
of course,
loving them, you know, not just there
depending
for
on a
money.
man's situation, like, you know, men can dream. That might not always be true for a lot of guys. Like, if you're really down the sub 5 category, then there's not much else you can do. Like, beta boxing might be your only option, and if that's a, you know, viable choice, there's some guys out there in the black pill community that think that is a viable option. They'd rather do that than have nothing at all. But, you know, I'm not going to comment on it.
Yeah, or even the extreme as far as, you know, just paying a woman for sex.
Yeah,
that, you know, that that, you know, if you have the ability, but you can't attract anybody at all, it's either you don't have any options or you go down that route.
I think the way that belief comes about is that people say you're going to pay in one way or another. you're either going to pay in the form of a relationship by paying for dates and holidays, things like that. So if you're going to do that, you might as well just cut out all of the headaches, that a relationship brings, and just pay for it directly.
Pay for what you want,
exactly.
what you really want.
I think that's where that belief comes about. I'm not an advocate of it. I don't think men should be paying. I think it should be legal. I think that option should be there, but that's for different reasons. But I wouldn't recommend for men to flat out just pay women for intimacy.
Sure, but what if you're at a point though that you can't attract a woman, period, like you are in that sub 5 category, and you've made all these different efforts and nothing happens, so you would just recommend that they don't have women in their life, period, in some cases?
It's each to their own. I don't think paying for it will necessarily be the solution. Like it might it might cure their problem in the short term, but in the long term they run a risk of bleeding their wallets dry. Even if they've got a lot of money, they can get addicted to it, and there's a lot of mental health issues surrounding guys who pay for it on a regular basis. I don't think it's a good way that they should be going about dating. As for finding fulfillment in other areas of life, I think that's a better way of going about it. Just if you're so low value that you bring nothing to the table physically, or in socially, you have terrible social skills and you have no physical attraction, but you have a lot of money, then I think that you should use that money to get fulfillment in other areas of life outside of dating. Like you can go traveling if you have a massive hobby that you're really fanatical about, like cycling or fishing, then you should just go all in on that. And there's plenty of people out there that are happy out there who have lived that life. There's plenty of examples, so there's no reason why other people can't do that as well.
Sure. It's just I think it's really sad that has to be an option, because again, kind of being in a different generation than you guys, and especially you, Wheat, that in the past people could find their looks match even if they're sub 5s. So you'd see unattractive couples who a lot of times have beautiful children. Like you showed me that one example of that one woman who both parents were probably sub 5s, right? And then they had this woman that was drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like what's happening today is that a lot of guys just get left out. What about the women who are kind of in that category? Like what ends up happening to them long term? What,
sub 5 women?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because the audience probably wants to know, for anyone who is interested in the couple that who I deemed both sub 5 but have extremely attractive daughter. Her name is Jade Ewan. Give her a Google search. She's a singer, and she's really attractive, at least in my book.
I saw her too. I agree.
100%. Yeah. But as for answering your question, the sub 5 women, what happens to them in the dating market? Well, it usually goes one of two ways. I think most women can date up. Even if a woman is a sub 5, she's gonna have options. But whether these are, just looking for something casual or they're actually interested in relationships, I don't know. I've seen both. There are sub 5 women. I showed one in my most recent video, actually, of a woman who was dating up at least 3, if not 4 points in terms of her SMV. So. She.
Oh, we were referring to the TikTok couple, right?
Yeah, there was this TikTok couple of some sub 5 woman who was with basically a Chad.
That was an 8 and a 3.
Yeah, it was a huge difference.
And their story, because they're obviously an outlier, their story is that they met in high school. So, which makes sense. I just saw one of her TikToks recently, and it showed a picture of her in 10th grade. And then a picture of him, and he's just this total scrawny, nerdy kid, and she's just kind of average looking,
Oh, so they were both looks matched.
I think so. So
back then, okay, that explains.
Do you think
it
outliers? A lot of times it develops because of that.
That is very possible, but I'm still extremely surprised that the man has lost, not lost faith somewhere along the way. If he sees he's going up in the world and she's going down in the world, and that gap opens up considerably, I'm very surprised that the man hasn't at least given it a bit of thought. He might have, but he obviously hasn't cut the cord yet.
Right.
Because he should know that he's got way better options out there waiting for him. And, he is like kind of still attached, even though, they're not on the same page, like with regard to like having a growth mindset.
Right. They would be so emotionally attached at that point.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
no
the
other
only
woman
reason.
would be able to compare to her necessarily, if that's his first love and they've known each other since they were kids. Like,
Either that or they're just looking for clout.
I've got there's that as well. But I was going to raise a different point of why, like, I think that the emotional attachment might not be there. Like if I'm in a relationship with a woman, I want us to be both on the same page with regard to like growing in life and progressing. That we're not just gonna let ourselves rot and lose attractiveness and put on weight. We're both gonna try to work on ourselves to become the best people that we can be. And in this relationship, it seems that that's not the case. The man obviously has put in a huge amount of time into the gym, eating healthily, and he's gone up in life. Meanwhile, his partner, evidently hasn't done the same. And if I was in his position, I would recognise that, and I would not, be happy, to say the least. I would see that we're both going in different directions, and I would probably break up with her and find another person who is on the same page with regard to progressing in life.
See, in some ways, I agree. Like, you both need to be growing, but I think there's seasons of life. Like I think that if you're in a committed relationship, you need to understand that there's different seasons of life, meaning that you need to give it time. If somebody's not right there on your same track
Have
of
they not
growth,
had both enough time, though?
Well, I don't know exactly their ages. I don't know if they're into their 30s now.
Well, the angle that
so.
I'm coming out is that, you don't become obese in 2 months.
Yeah,
But like,
even,
if I saw that my partner was going in a direction that I thought wasn't beneficial to them in life, I would be raising that issue within 2 months, and I'll try to help them with that. But it seems that this has gone on for an extended...
That's a really difficult conversation, though.
It is a very difficult
especially when it
situation,
comes
but
to
it's a very necessary one as well.
Yes.
And for this couple, this problem, this disparity in their attractiveness seems to have gone on for a very extended period of time. Like, the man, just based on his looks and his physique, I'm guessing he's gone to the gym for at least 3 years, if not more. You don't, become that jacked, just by going to the gym once a week. It's he's clearly put a lot of effort into it.
I would say years, probably more than just 3 years.
And same goes for the woman. Like, it seems that she's been living a lifestyle that has made her put on a considerable amount of weight for a long time, an extended period of time. And it seems that they probably haven't had this conversation, which is necessary to make sure that they're both moving in a positive direction in life. It's either that or the man just doesn't care. The man just, he's happy to, tolerate that, like that, he's moving up and the woman's becoming less attractive. You
don't think he would be resentful, though? So for example, he's putting all that time and effort, and then, he's seeing her, potentially, eat whatever she wants and not ever exercise, that type of thing, where he's putting all this energy into this. And you could say maybe it's for himself, but at the same time, I would also think that it would be a disparity in lifestyles. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
'Cause, like,
they're eating different things.
Yeah, they're eating different things.
Probably.
So when I'm with somebody, typically I would want that person to be active and to be eating healthy. And, it's kind of like the old joke that, I think Chris Rock said at one point, is like, you can't have one person who is religious and the other person who's on crack or something like that. You can't. They have to have some kind of commonality in lifestyles in order to probably have a healthy relationship. I don't know what your take on that.
I can see that, but I also think that if somebody's like really in tune with what they like and what they enjoy about themselves, they don't necessarily always push that on the other person. I think that's how opposites a lot of times will attract, because they can almost be more intrigued by the other person. And the point that I was going to bring out is, I don't know if you went and asked him if he's attracted to his wife, don't you think he would say yes? I mean, obviously he would say yes, to anyone listening.
He can't not say yes.
But,
you don't know what he's really thinking.
But obviously, their relationship is ongoing, so I'm assuming there is intimacy. So there has to be some level of attraction that is there.
Another reason I just thought of is that when you look in the comment section of their videos, it's filled with people saying like, wow, they look so great together. And in fact, some people are saying that he is lucky to have her, that he's the one who's actually, should be grateful that he's in this position.
Aren't those women commenting that though? No, guys would be saying that.
Well, there might be guys, there might be women. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, online is anonymous, so people can say whatever they're like, even if they know nothing about relationships. And your word is as good as anybody else's, unless you have a blue check mark next to your name on social media. Like that's the only difference it could make. But if this guy, bearing in mind they're uploading like daily or several times a day, if he is fed these messages enough, then maybe he is actually thinking that they're on level terms. It is possible. Like, does he see the wood for the trees?
I do think that like people that watch their channel and they're really intrigued by them, it makes sense because people look at them and they don't fit a standard, and it must be because they have this emotional attachment to each other, that there's something really internally within them that are matching up, which tells the people that are viewing it like that's possible for me. Like looks aren't everything. And I think that a lot of people like hearing that because they want to connect with somebody on a deeper level, and they don't want it to be all about looks. I can say at least for women, that's an entire thing for them. Like even really beautiful women want to be attached to a man emotionally, and they don't want to just be wanted for their looks. So I think for viewers that are watching them, they're seeing that, wow, that's possible.
Well, that's probably why they've blown up in the first place, isn't it? Because if they were both on a similar looks level, they would be like every other, thousands of different relationships out there, which are all the same. Like they're an outlier, and that's why they've blown up, because all of the women who are in a similar situation to the woman in that relationship they're thinking like, oh, it is possible. Yes, I'm going to keep watching their content. I'm going to give them a follow because, this is going to help me believe that, this, because they've done it, so can I. Well, because she's done it, then so can I. I think that's why, they've probably blown up on TikTok.
Yeah. But do you actually think that is possible? Because Emily, you said earlier that opposites attract, and I agree with that, but I think it's an attraction thing, but it's not a sustainable thing. Do you know what I mean? Again, if you have completely different lifestyles or ways of thinking or looking at the world.
The lack of compatibility, right? Like I think that those relationships can continue for a time, but if they're just too opposite, they're not compatible, I think at some point it's going to come crashing down.
Well, I'll ask both of you, like if both of you have jobs and you're with somebody who did have a job to begin with, but then over the course of a relationship, he or she just one day said, I'm not going to work anymore, and I'm just going to sit on my arse at home. I'm going to eat junk food all day. Like, could you honestly sit there and say, oh yeah, this is completely fine, I'm going to stay with this person, and I'm not going to think that they're going in a bad direction? Could you honestly sit there and, think that?
Well, I had an actual experience where I was engaged to a woman. We had resided together, and about 6 months before the actual wedding, she said, I'm not going to work anymore. And all the responsibility was on me. And her reasoning was that she had siblings that were all sisters that didn't work. Her mom didn't work. But up to that point, she was working.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up not following through because of that, because then all the pressure was on me.
Because did she not even talk about that before you were engaged? That was like an expectation for her was when she was...
I assumed that, she would continue to work.
Right.
But it was like kind of once she knew that we had the date booked and, all that type of thing, I think in her mind she said, okay, now I can kind of be my true self, which is, she probably wanted that all along.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
She should have communicated that because she absolutely did.
Just to chip in, this is why a lot of people are against marriage, because they say that, as soon as the knot is tied, there's nothing you can do. Like the person that you're with, they can, break whatever promises that they've said that they, were going to keep. that they want. They can do, they can, as you say, just stop working. And obviously she did it 6 months too early, because if she did it,
Yes.
She didn't play that right.
yeah,
Yeah. No, she's a great person. Honestly, I think she just felt comfortable at that point saying that, like, this is what I really want.
Yeah.
And like, you're okay with that, because I'm glad she gave me that warning, because otherwise I could have been out half my money. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it could be that way, with other things, like, I'm going to stop exercising. I'm going to not be that interested in sex anymore.
That's the one I hear the most.
Yes.
Is the
Yes.
huge decline in intimacy.
Well, there
right
are
after
biological
marriage.
reasons, for that as well. Like, obviously because of menopause and
Yeah. But if you're in your
women
20s or 30s,
yeah,
And it
of
happens
course.
like right
Yeah.
after,
Yeah.
right after the honeymoon.
yeah, 6 months after, all of a sudden it starts really declining. Then it's one of those things where you're kind of trapped. Either you stay in an unfulfilling relationship, you end it, and then potentially get taken to the cleaners, or which you end up going outside the relationship, which could cause all kinds of different issues. So it's just, I think nowadays it's very risky for men to get married. I hate to say that, but
I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of men saying that they will never again, after they've made that one mistake and they lose half their stuff, because they look back and they do feel like it was almost like a bait and switch,
Yeah. Well, I'm not completely against the idea of marriage, but I think that there needs to be a ton, like, don't underestimate me here, like a ton of vetting. You should know the person that you're with inside and out. Like, it should not even be a possibility that they're gonna, change behaviors, after the, contract is signed. What do you guys think?
Well, yes. And what you were saying about the scenario of, if somebody's working and they just decide to quit, and be lazy, what are you going to do about that? Like, I think there's things internally that will never change in a person. So those are the things that you need to find out. Like, you need to find out their values and their beliefs. And that does take time, really, for somebody to really reveal that. And for the other person, you have to really believe what you're seeing in actions. So
Yes.
I think that when things move too quickly and people just want to be blindly in love, that's when they get themselves in trouble.
yeah, it's a huge mistake. I think the
Yeah.
other thing that people really have to do is go through difficulties together and see how they're able to work through that
Yes.
before getting married. Because it's just inevitable when there's going to be, some kind of issue that pops up, or a difference in opinion or whatever. And if you're able to navigate that, it's a much stronger possibility of signing a legal contract with somebody versus, getting to the point of saying, okay, everything's gone smoothly for a year, or less than it even. A lot of times, people will get married or engaged in the honeymoon stage, and then it's one of those things where problems arise, and you can't, like you said, effectively vet anybody when they're in
I've
that
heard
situation.
I can't remember who said it, but I've heard like somebody say the single best indicator of relationship strength and longevity is how each person responds and grows and deals with issues. So if they can respond and grow from issues in a positive way, then you're on the right track. But if there's like, it's not that arguments are bad, but it's how you deal with those arguments, because every relationship has arguments.
Right.
But if those arguments are being able to, like, if they're being dealt with swiftly, efficiently, and you're both able to see eye to eye with one another, and you're able to like fix a solution so it doesn't creep up again, then you're on the right lines.
Right.
What
I
would you
think
say?
there has to be compromise too, because I think that many men will oftentimes be the one that just gives in and says,
Yeah.
sorry, honey, because they want to keep the relationship going.
Yes.
Yeah.
But both women and men need to realize that that is not good. Like, even from the woman's perspective, they need to understand that that is not good, because they are not getting that man's true feelings on the situation. And at some point, that's going to come down to something bad going on, and like the relationship crashing, and him, maybe moving on and either ending the relationship or looking for something outside of the relationship to meet his needs.
Yeah. Like a lot of men, as you say, they just give in, whenever a problem arises, just because they can't be bothered to deal with the problems
Right.
at hand. Like they'd rather just,
It's easy. It's
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
easier
it is.
path.
It is
Let's have a
easier.
headache.
Yeah, it is. But the problem is, though, that if you don't deal with it right then in that moment, you're effectively just sweeping the problems under the rug.
Yes.
And as we all know, problems under the rug don't vanish. Like they're going to stay there, and
they're
eventually
gonna
it's
get
going
worse.
to and it's going to compile and it's going to get worse. And so my advice to guys will be like, if there's an issue, you should try to fix it. Like, as soon as possible, as is appropriate. Like, if there's a problem that you're eating in a public restaurant, don't be kicking up a fuss in front of public people. But, it should be the case that as soon as you get in the car or as soon as you walk in the door when you get home, sit down, address the problem that needs to be raised, and, then you can hopefully meet a resolution there.
Let's talk a little bit about, as I'm interested to hear you guys talk about this, because both of you have big followings on different platforms, but wheat comes from the black pill community, and I'm wondering, Emily, what you kind of think about the black pill ideology, since you've had some time to research it. And
Yeah, I never knew about like the different pill colors until recently, until TikTok, really.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think red pill was the one that I was hearing the most about, and then black pill, and then most recently blue pill. And I think there's just the three. Is that right?
Well, there is other ones that people have
Subgroups, yeah.
tried to
Okay.
coin, but
none of them stuck,
Not
right?
hitting well.
none of them have stuck. Like the three main ones is blue and red and black.
Right. So when looking at those, maybe you should explain it because you're really the one that has been in it for the longest time period. But I feel like a lot of my content maybe is more blue pill potentially because it has more to do with like just be yourself.
It's a bit embarrassing for me
You
to
know,
say
just-
this, but I've not actually seen much of your content before, so I wouldn't be able to correctly identify
mine
it,
is
but-
more just like common sense. You should do what is okay with you internally, meaning be yourself, do what you want to do and play that role that you want to play. So I think that falls more into the blue pill, but you can maybe, describe each one and talk about the
Well,
differences.
based on us just sitting here, like I wouldn't, the conversations that we've already had for the last hour and a half or so, I think that you've thrown pieces of advice from all like over the spectrum. It's not like, it's coming from a specific, pill. Like you've said some things that, to do with the look stuff is more black pill, and then you've said other stuff which is a bit more to do with like dating strategy, which is more red pill, and then you've also said a couple of things that are blue pill as well. So I wouldn't exactly be able to pinpoint, but yeah, it's like a kind of a mix of all different ones.
So can you kind of describe the pills, to
Yeah,
Emily,
so-
and then I like Emily's reaction as far as what she thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if to give a very brief summary, like if you
Yeah.
look at the channel banner on my channel, it says like blue pill, just be yourself, red pill is just be confident, and then black pill is just be tall and good. It's tall and good looking, or it's something like that. I can't remember exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
tall and good looking.
Yeah. So so they're like the free. That's like a 3-word summary of each pill, but it goes further than that. I think, like, just to elaborate a little bit more, for blue pill, it is, nobody who's blue pilled actually knows they're blue pilled. That's kind of like the meme, because most people are blue pilled, which basically means that they have no knowledge of dating dynamics and the importance of looks or even money and status and game and things like that. They wouldn't even know what game is if you asked them it. And that's the majority of people. And then once you go into red pill, like, this is really broad. It's probably the most broad of them all, because you have a lot of red pillars who think that game is the most important, and it's about like how you approach a woman and your frame and your posture and your way about going about dating. And then you also have other red pillars who think that status and money are the most important things, that you should just try to level up in your career and your business as much as possible, and then women will be coming after you. And then there's one more group of red pillars who deny both of those things, and they say it's all about looks, but the looks that you can change. And their advice in a sentence is just go to the gym. So their focus is on leveling up your physique, your fashion, your styling, your grooming, getting your hair cut on point, things like that. So like the red pill is very broad, and none of them are really all in the same boat, but they're all red pillars at the end of the day. And then black pill is the last of them all, which again says that looks is the most important thing, but they say that going to the gym and fixing your haircut won't really make much of a difference. It's mostly about the genetic factors of looks, such as being tall and your facial structure.
What about height too, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, and body.
That's for
is body
black
one
pill.
of the things though? Because you can change your body somewhat, right?
Yes.
Under the red pill.
Yeah. So when it comes to body and like going to the gym, that's more red pill. But black pillers often acknowledge that it can lead to improvements. So I've not come across a black pillar who, apart from some extreme ones, who believe that going to the gym is completely pointless. Most black pillars at least acknowledge that going to the gym is important and you should be looking after yourself. You should lower your body fat percentage. You should like increase your amount of muscle mass. But they believe that those things can often be quite limited. Like if a 3 out of 10 guy goes to the gym, unless he's obese, he's not going to be able to get to a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It's just very unlikely. Like if a 5 out of 10 goes to the gym, he might be able to get to a 6, 6.5, 7 maybe. But like he's scarcely going to become into the top 10% of guys. Like you need other things such as height and a natural good facial structure for that.
And that plays even more importance because of online dating. And so it's something that I can personally say that I've checked all of those boxes except for the fact that I'm getting older now. And so it's something that I've seen. And one of the reasons I believe in the black pill ideology in this time period, not before, is because of the fact that, again, I probably have all of those boxes checked that the red pillars would have, except for the fact that I'm getting older. And
some red pillars believe that the older you get, that you age like fine wine.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Well, if that was the case,
more
then
desired.
I would have a lot more luck in dating.
Hasn't
then.
been your experience.
That hasn't been my experience.
Well, I had an acronym on my channel called Sub5, which stands for short, ugly bald.
Face, right?
Yeah. Bald, F, fat, I, inches, V, vulnerable, which is my version of old. And then some people also said like mental disabilities or physical disabilities is included in that. And then the last one is ethnicity. So out of those 7 things, then obviously the one thing that you're missing is the age one.
Yes.
That's like ruining your dating chances the most.
Yes, and that's what you're talking about, which again I've kind of bought into, is that you can't reverse age. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's something that's more. It's not genetic, but it's just the normal course of life.
Yeah.
And so the older you get, the less and this works for women too. I really believe actually probably more. As far as kind of once you start getting up there, you're going to have a smaller pool of people to be able to attract.
It makes sense.
Yes.
It's almost like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Right.
That, and this applies for both men and women. Like if a woman gets a promotion for like $10,000, from 31 to 35, yeah, that might have benefited her life in financial respect, but she's now a lot older. She's 4 years older, and that's going to dwindle her dating options.
How does black pill work with, like, do you believe that people are attracted to different things? Or is there just sort of you have data that shows that there's set things that the majority of people are attracted to?
Well, 95% of likes on online dating apps go to just the top 50% of men. So that means the bottom half of guys out there, they're only getting 5% of the matches.
Do you know how that differs with women then, like with likes?
It's similar, but it's to a
Okay.
less degree. So it might only be like 90% of matches go to the top
see.
50%. I don't know the exact figures, but I know
Yeah.
that the extremities is way worse for men than it is women. So
Like
even
twice
if you're
as worse.
yeah,
Right?
even when you're an unattractive woman, you're still going to have options.
That's
but-
so interesting to me
yeah.
because men tend to be seen as more so that visual partner, that is looking for a certain something.
I think
but I guess
times
they're
have
just not
changed.
as. I think times have changed, especially with dating apps. I totally believe, especially for women, I think that dating apps are not really set up to benefit them in what they really connect with.
Like men or women?
For women. Like, I think that because they're going by just pictures of the men that they're seeing, that they're missing out a lot of times on things that they would have experienced in person and caught on to and maybe had found an attraction to. Because I think what I've seen and what I've heard is that women will sometimes be attracted to like really random things, like even a guy's voice, you know, even just how a guy does kind of handle his posture and his presence about him, his body language, you know, like in just what he says too, and not just the voice. But I think that there are things that like women are just totally, they're missing out on, and they don't connect visually as much as men do. And so they're going to swipe no on somebody just based on their picture sometimes because of that. Whereas like if they had met them in real life, I think that there's a better chance of them actually like, well, maybe like not a completely yes, but they'll open the door.
If you're probably in that normie range, though.
Yeah, that's right? what I was going to point out. Like, I think there is a little bit of more nuance when it comes to meeting guys in real life. And a woman, if she meets a guy in real life and he ticks 7 other boxes, like, you know, having a voice she finds attractive and, you know, style and, you know, like he's got all these other things going for him, then she might leave that door open and she would consider to date him, which she wouldn't have if, you know, she saw him on a online dating app. But I think that a lot of these reasons, this is a bit more of a cynical point, that when women say like, oh, we share the same music and, you know, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
I think there are a lot of like just cope reasons. And it's because they originally found the guy attractive and then they then use these other reasons to justify why they find him attractive. But if I'm being honest, if the guy who had, you know, all of these extra things going for him, if said guy was a 3 out of 10 man, no life prospects, had nothing else going for him, then he would still be chalked off as a, you know, a non-option, just like all of the other people that she rejected.
So what do you think, what makes a man like a 3 out of 10? Talking about the things that you were, like the body, face, height. So is it height to like what degree? Because I know women talk all the time about, oh, I only want 6 feet and above, even though that's not even close to the average height of men.
Yeah. So there's kind of 2 ratings that's often talked about within the Black pill community. You have like your face rating, and then you also have an SMV rating. And the more important one is the SMV rating, because that includes everything. So let's say that we have like a 5 out of 10 guy, you know, right off the bat you think, oh, not too bad, like he's average. But let's say that he's, you know, 5'5" in height, he's completely bald, and he's broke. Then overall SMV across the board, he's a 3 out of 10, because that's like the average of all of those things. Well, it's not the average of all of those things, but those things would bring him down to a 3 out of 10.
And then some of those things, just some of them, do you ever suggest that he try to change? Like a hair implant or like,
yeah, of
what
course,
would you always...
Of course, yeah.
And
like,
moving to Asia.
Moving to Asia. I know that was one that I had heard, like, you know, going to a different area that, you know, you would be rated significantly
your
higher.
SMV also depends on your location as well. If a guy is a 5 out of 10 in the UK or the USA, he could be an 8 out of 10 if he moves to a different country. So the average height in America and most parts of Europe is 5'10" for guys. But in parts of Southeast Asia, in actually the majority of countries over there, it's only 5'5". So if you're a guy who's say 5'8" in the West, you know, you're below average height. It's a small strike against you. But if you move over to you know, one of these Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand or the Philippines, all of a sudden you've been bumped up and you're now above average by a few inches. So that can be a benefit for a lot of guys.
Do you think that it's beneficial for men to get off dating apps?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
Dating apps is by far the worst approach that guys can do. For most people, I do caveat it, like for very, very small percentage of
If you're a
guys,
Chad.
like, yeah, if you're not just a Chad, because even if you're a Chad, I think that you've got better things to do than waste your time on online dating apps. Like, I've recently had a interview with who is widely considered a Chad, a dating coach called James Tusk, and even he says that he doesn't worry about online dating apps because, like, just the amount of time and effort that you have to spend on them, and you turn up to the date and the woman looks nothing like her pictures, it's just not worth it. So even for a Chad, like, there's better options than online dating apps. But for a very small percentage of guys, which I would say, like, I have a friend back home who's he's up there, he's like a 7. I wouldn't say he's a full-on Chad, but he's definitely, you know, way above average looking. His social skills are pretty poor, to say the least. But an online dating could work quite well for him. I actually told him that he should be on online dating apps because his looks, which is his strongest thing, is at the forefront. Do you kind of get what I'm coming at here?
That totally makes sense. I think I've said the same thing for people that are extremely shy and have a hard time really even ever approaching a woman in real life to, you know, try dating apps. And at least, like, it kind of gets you into a pattern and gets you used to talking to somebody, even if it's mostly via text.
Yeah.
To just kind of break that barrier and start to get comfortable with it.
Well, I've got screenshots on my channel of, like, dates that have been set up, like, from guys, and their game is, you know, it's half there. In fact, it's a quarter there. It's like the game isn't, like, good at all, but they're still able to get a date from it just because, you know, as we've been talking about, like, online dating is mostly about your photos. So even if you're a person who's shy and, you know, your social skills aren't great, if you, you know, use online dating, you can often get given the benefit of the doubt and still land a date with a girl, even if, you know, your social skills have been poor.
But then when you're on the date, you actually have to perform at that point.
Yeah, of course, there's
And
that.
so,
Yeah, there is that. But then, you know, there's other ways about going to the date where you minimize, like, the talking and, like, that's where, you know, the other things that come into play that we've been saying about where you invite a woman over for Netflix and chill. And, yeah, like, it depends what you're looking for. But there is a small percentage of guys that online dating will work for them. If you're very good looking, poor social skills, and not looking for a relationship, you know, because in that case, all you have to do is just invite girls over for Netflix and chill, and let your looks do the talking for you, basically.
Yeah. Well, and for guys in my generation, I mean, when I was younger, like, that's our only option was warm or cold, you know, situations. You know, meaning social circles or
Right. What was
you know,
the go-to?
For me, I was everything, you know, so I tell funny stories about, you know, for example, if I thought a bank teller was cute, I would slide her my number, you know, with the deposit, but I would also...
I was once a bank teller.
Okay.
I had a note slipped to me.
Yes, exactly.
A couple times.
And, you know, it worked a couple times, but majority of times it didn't. And then I would also, you know, try to implement, you know, just social circles or parties or groups or whatever. But I think our culture is moving away from that so much.
Yes. I mean, at this point, there's a lot of women out there that would say they don't want to be approached. Or they don't want that
I think it is definitely getting harder. Like, Todd, you said about yesterday that when you go to the gym now, all of the women have got, like, their AirPods in. They don't want to be talked to. They'll soak up all the attention, of course. Like, they'll wear, you know, clothes that complement their appearance. So, you know, they'll know that they have a lot of guys staring at them, but they don't want guys to approach them.
Yeah, and I think it depends, right? Like, I
Who's
do think that
approaching?
I think it does depend on who is approaching them. I think a lot of men that follow me have brought up this point for women that say they don't want to be approached, that, you know, they're almost insulted by it. They say in response, yeah, well, if it was a guy that you were attracted to, you wouldn't be offended.
Yeah.
Like, you would just be happy that he
I've
approached
100%
you.
heard that before.
Right.
And going back to the online dating thing, I think this is where it's a unique situation where the guy does not matter who's leaving a like or a comment on a woman's Instagram profile. The only thing that matters is numbers, is quantity. And this is why women often go, like, above and beyond, and they post pictures of themselves that they wouldn't dream of, like walking around in the street, like, you know, the same attire. And that's because they're getting the only thing that matters online is the quantity of attention, not the quality. So when they're going out in the real world, they're probably going to be a bit more modest because they don't want to attract that, undesirable attention from guys who, aren't attractive.
Right. Or any catcalling or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since everything has shifted so much, what are some solutions that we can have as far as, trying to brainstorm is trying to weave in and out of some of the barriers that are there.
I think
you guys are the experts.
I know. As far as the advice that I give, I just think that men should be able to approach women. Women need to, I understand from their viewpoint why maybe it can be an inconvenience, but you gotta be a little bit more human and understand that if they're interested in you, take it as a compliment, and just if you're not interested, let them down gently. And it's not a huge thing. What did that take from your day? 2 minutes? Why are you letting it impact how you feel about yourself from that?
And a woman would feel insulted because she feels like that person had no chance with her?
I think that happens. Okay. Yes. I do think that happens. I've known friends that have been insulted by certain men coming up to them and asking for their number.
Okay.
Or, apparently hitting on them in some way.
Or just the discomfort that interaction involves in general.
Right. There's that, which I think is a whole nother thing where we have all tended to be more on social media. There's less group settings where we're talking to people in real life. And I think everybody in general is a little bit more uncomfortable with having real human interactions. Absolutely. But I don't think that should shift blame on the man for making an attempt. And I think that happens right now on social media.
Do you think women should step up and start approaching guys? Because I made this point in my most recent video that even to this day, men are still seen as the people that need to approach the woman.
Right.
But when you think about it, if women did it, if women were the ones to approach, it would smoothen out the process so much more. Their success rate of landing dates would be 10 times higher than what a man could get from cold approaching women. So what do you think of women approaching men?
So what I used to say is women need to give a clear signal. Right? The old style handkerchief she needs to throw on the ground, right? To give the clear signal. But I think things are so muddied now that a lot of times men are not getting that signal. They need to have it be very clear to them that woman is interested. So absolutely, what about just
should approach?
I think that they should approach. I used to say more signaling, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But I really think that because of today's society, a lot of men just don't pick up on that.
I think it's less I do mostly agree with what you're saying, but the only thing I was going to say that I differ a little bit. I think that it's less about men not noticing the signals, rather it's because they see that the risk is too high to approach the woman, that they choose not to, even if there is a strong chance that she has left a signal, because men, they're kind of brought up nowadays that they've been shut down their whole life, that they've constantly been rejected, so they don't want to approach a woman because they fear what the consequences may be, and rejection is just the start of that. The woman could gossip around. Ooh, and
I could see that, or if he's labeled a creep.
Exactly.
I think that's huge for guys. That's a huge fear. So maybe they're getting the signal, but they're just afraid to act on it.
I think it's worse so in I think the signal needs to be significantly stronger in a warm environment such as a school or a social group, because the risk in that situation is far too high. We're going way beyond just the loss of self-esteem from rejection now, because if a man approaches a woman, let's say in a school environment, because he thought he saw a signal, but then it turns out that he didn't, then his dating life is more or less finished. It's not completely finished in that environment, but if the gossip spreads around, cell phones make it even worse.
Yeah, so because she's the well,
it's poisoning the well. She's gonna tell all of her friends on social media, and it's basically game over for that guy as long as he's in that environment.
Yeah, so it's tricky for sure, and so I think both of your guys' advice would be probably somewhat similar, but I'm interested in hearing as far as because I've know Wheat well and have consumed his content, and his is very kind of dependent. He has a whole flow chart. You can explain it.
So I have a video which says what should you do in your dating life, and like the flow chart basically asks the viewer all different questions about what kind of position they are in life, and then at the end, after they've answered all of those questions, it tells them what they should do, like what the steps to take are, and one of those steps is going to Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Which your girlfriend, and also I am not a huge proponent of that for a couple of reasons. So I understand, because you're trying to come up with something that would be effective.
Would work, right? Yeah. Even if it's not maybe
but it's just so extreme,
realistic.
though. Yeah. So you're completely uprooting your life, and you may have to find a new job,
right.
and
Well, just to be clear, not many people fell into that category. Like that was only like a small percentage. Like most people, the solutions were fairly straightforward, that they should either focus on warm approach or cold approach, or looks maxing, for the time being, and then do like warm approach afterwards. So most people were like simple solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it really depended on kind of what your standing was.
Yes, exactly.
And so they should check out your that specific video.
I
your
think
channel.
The question that I get asked the most is from men that don't want to be on dating sites, because they know, especially if they've been on them before and they quit them and they're done with them because they know they don't have success on them. What is your recommendation for where to meet a woman?
I would say if they've got warm environments available, they should focus on that first and foremost. But then if they haven't got that available, then that's when they should jump into cold approach. But for cold approaches, like this is still a bit of a broad term, so just to narrow it down a bit more, stay out of nightclubs, stay out of pubs and bars. You predominantly want to be doing your warm approaches during the day, because that I personally believe that higher quality women are going to be in those sorts of environments. Like you're not going to meet a wife material in a nightclub. That's just my opinion.
I was in nightclubs for years, and first of all, you can barely even talk to each other, and second of all, most people are intoxicated, and so it's just a terrible way.
I think the difficulty is, like, at least in those environments, you kind of assume that most of those people are single, that are out, so that the door is like potentially open with them. Whereas if you're just going into your day-to-day life,
into the library,
like, how do you know? How do you know if somebody?
Well, yeah, of course.
Is single,
a lot of them are going to be in relationships, but it's the it's a chance you take. Like you have to get through the rejections in order to get to the like women that actually are interested. But as for the nightclub, you said that most people are single. I heard on one of Hamza's videos that he says every woman is single in a nightclub, even if they are in a relationship. As soon as they step into a nightclub, they're automatically single, which I kind of see why he does believe that.
That's interesting.
What do you think? What do you both think about?
Not that there's many nightclubs necessarily around here, but
I mean, there plenty are, but they're by the time you're
well
25,
in UK.
By the time you're 25, in this area, anyways, it's one of those things where you're the old person in the club if you're over, maybe 30 at the max. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even a viable option, for the 30 plus crowd. Honestly, I think it's really about like kind of what Wheat said, as far as being in a warm environment, and then being able to kind of over time, kind of cultivate, something. And and that would be like social clubs, groups, meetups, that type of thing. I think that's probably people's best chance. But it's just so tricky because, for example, it's not ideal to date someone that you work with, right? And so because if that goes bad, then your work environment is poisoned. And in a small percentage of people are in school. Do you know what I mean? Then once you get out of school, it's really about, I think you have to really be outgoing and put yourself out there in different environments of interest that you enjoy. And if you meet someone towards that, great. But if not, you're doing an activity that you enjoy anyways.
Right. You at least have that benefit.
Yes.
I usually recommend that too. I just don't know how truly successful it is, to join clubs of whatever it is you enjoy. If you enjoy hiking or mountain biking,
yeah,
skiing,
I brought that up because I joined a hiking club one time, and it was everybody was like over 65.
See,
and so
it's like you don't know what you're going to run into.
Yeah,
not much success
it was
there.
It was a fun hike that day, but it was something that I could do that on my own. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't really looking for friends.
Right.
I wasn't. I didn't join it specifically for that reason, but I was just saying, let's try this out. So it's tricky. I mean, there's no simple solution, I think, to any of this.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of like middle-aged to even younger join a gym, and that is like what we were talking about with guys approaching a woman at the gym.
I think the best course of action at the gym is to either join a class that goes on in the gym. So like if, let's say you're in a cycling class or something like that, there's going to be before and after that you can kind of introduce yourself, and you might see that same person at the Wednesday class at 9:00 in the morning. Or for guys, a lot of times is maybe join a yoga class.
I was just going to say, guys, join the yoga class.
Yoga is actually very strenuous.
Take competition out of it too, because you're probably going to be the only guy.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts too on doing things like that, where you're kind of the only man versus doing things in which there are going to be a lot of other men that might be vying for the same.
Yeah, I think it depends. Woman. I mean, like for example, yoga I would be more comfortable with because I really get a lot out of it. But so I'm at the gym, for example, and they have Zumba classes every day, and so there'll be like one or two guys in there, and honestly, most of the time they're like sub 5 guys, and then the rest of the class will be women. Like that, I wouldn't feel comfortable with, just because at this point in my life. First of all, I don't. For me personally, I wouldn't get out of a lot out of a dance class, but I see that kind of as a more feminine activity. Do you know what I mean? Versus lifting or something like that, which a lot more women are doing these days. Because again, that's definitely been a cultural shift too. Because women hardly ever used to lift weights; it was all cardio, and now they are in the gym just as much as men.
Yeah.
So
I totally see that.
But I think in the regular gym environment, it's something where it's really tricky because of the fact that, like we said earlier, that you have your AirPods on, they're not making eye contact.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of a set.
Zone.
Yeah, in the zone.
You don't want to interrupt them.
Yes.
And you probably shouldn't interrupt them like in the middle of a set.
And I was when we went to the gym together, I was pointing out that there's this one woman who is extremely attractive, and every time I see her in there, at least one guy gives it a shot, and every time it fails. As far as there's never an exchange of numbers. Like she's pleasant to the guy, but it's something that I just kind of observe. Like when's it going to happen? And it usually does. So I give the guys credit for giving it a shot, but. From her perspective, she probably likes the attention, but also is probably annoyed a lot. But she also dresses in a way that kind of invites that to a certain degree.
Yeah, and if she's not changing her behavior, it can't be bothering her too much. I mean, if she's going to the gym still, same location, same time. It's a lot to think about, really, the impact of somebody's attractiveness, especially in today's dating world with dating sites really seeming to emphasize that. So for guys that are really frustrated right now with how they're doing in the dating market, they're not really getting the likes, the swipes. They're not really finding anyone in their real lives really either. What do you have available?
Well, attractiveness is extremely important in today's dating market. But what's perhaps more important is actually knowing where you stand, because as you said, some guys, they're going to be getting no swipes and they're not going to be getting any attention from women. And that's why I offer a face rating service. And it's mainly like to make this distinguishation between the guys that are getting no swipes and it's because they are just unattractive, or if it's because like their appearance needs work and their photos are terrible and they need to like up their game in certain areas. Like I've seen plenty of guys, I've had over 5,000 people that have had my rating service, and I've seen plenty of guys who fall into both of those two categories. So it is hard to work out. And I also provide strengths and weaknesses of where you stand, and some looks maxing advice as well. So it's a cheap service. It starts at only $5 for a rating. So if you're interested, then check out my Fiverr page. It's in the description box of pretty much every one of my videos.
Mm-hmm. We can put in the description box of our video as well. The only caveat I would say is that if you're going to sign up for Wheat's service, he's going to give you a brutally honest rating.
Honest.
And if you're not ready to handle that, then just be wary, because it's something that because he took me on that process about how he did it, and it's something where he's going to give you an honest evaluation on not only what your rating is, but what you need to do. And I think it's self-awareness is in life in general is one of the number one things that people need to have in their life, whether it's dating or otherwise. But I think it's a valuable service for sure. But the other thing that you have always said is that it's not just about getting a rating, from someone like yourself, but at the end of the day, it's about how women treat you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's about how women treat you as well. And as I've just said as well, like there are reasons for why that they either treat you good or badly, and it could just be a matter of you haven't looked maxed yet and you need to up your game, or it could be that you just are unattractive. So it could be either one of those two things.
Yeah, I think anyone that wants to sign up for that service, they do just need to be in the right headspace.
Yes,
like, see
course.
it as data. It's not solidifying what's going to happen in your life.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend my service for everybody. Like, if you're struggling with mental health or self-image, then it's probably not the best idea, because, as I say, it is a brutally honest rating. It's not, what you've experienced, like, probably throughout your life, where people tell you what you want to hear.
Or you'll find someone someday.
Yeah. You're not going to be told. You're not going to be told that if you come to my service. It is honest, but for most people out there, I think the data can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I think that this has been really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
Yes, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.